Welcome to Buckets. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. This is your Future Jays Best Bets episode for the 2024-25 NBA season. We're going to give you best bets from Joe Dellera and Jim Turvey, a.k.a. the Future Jays. They'll be with you every Monday. We'll break down the biggest stories in the league, talk about futures, whatever plays we've got going on there. Plus, we'll give you the best bets for Monday's episodes. That starts next week, so make sure to tune in for that. But today, we're just going to do straight up futures best bets. I've had these guys on. They've talked about a number of different things. Some of these you may have heard with the other episodes, but I want to give each and every member of our contributing group at Buckets a chance to give out their very, very, very best of the best bets. And so that's what this week is going to be. We're going to start with the Future Jays. We're going to have Sean Little and Jay Money on a show that I am now calling Cash Only. They're going to be tomorrow's show. Then the next day, I have a bunch of our other guys who are always talking about the bets they want to make. And then I say, hey, who wants to come on to a best bets episode? And they're all like, I don't know. I guess I have some. And I'm like, you're liars. I know all of you have a million things. So like Fonseca and the others, I will have on a show on Thursday. On Friday, you're getting a double dose of Jim because Jim and Brandon are doing
a lot.
It's so good.
What are you doing, Jim? You tell the people.
It's so good. It's a bet from each of us for all 30 teams. So 60 bets, attempting to be within an hour, which is one of the funniest things I've ever said on this podcast. But that is the goal, is 60 bets in 60 minutes.
He wanted to have his own podcast, and I said, that's great. You're awesome. Look at your ROI. You're phenomenal. I think you'll be great at this. This is going to be great. I only have one requirement. Only one. And it was time. And then I did an hour, and like I'm part of the problem. I did like an hour and 40 with him on MVP. It's fine. Just saying, you guys are I was like, oh, so you're having a 300-minute pod. That's cool. That's fun. We are going to do this pod in the format of 40 minutes of sell, which is I'm going to start the clock, and we're going to have 40 minutes to get through as many bets as possible from Jim and Joe. We'll go back and forth. I get to give my opinion of the bets. I will not grade them this time, but I'm going to give we'll go back and forth. We'll talk about any sort of considerations that we want to have. They get to give them out in the order that they want to give them to you, the listeners, so you can get them into your accounts and also on the Action Network app, which is the best way for you to track your picks. You can track Jim and Joe's picks. You can track Brandon's picks. You can track all sorts of cool picks in the Action Network app, as well as all sorts of cool information. Our props tool is new and updated. Lots of cool stuff in there. Download it right now. Make sure to check out youtube.com/the Action Network. Live Buckets is going to return next week. Buckets Live will be back with you next week. We will probably do a Buckets Live after the opening night of the season and set up the Wednesday slate. So be on the lookout for that. Let's get started. I'm going to officially start the count here. All right. Who should I go with? Joe Dellera has poison ivy all over his body. So Joe Dellera is going to get first crack at it. Itchy Joe, you get the first pick on 40 minutes of sell. Go.
I am itching to give out my Sixth Man of the Year award.
All right, Jim Turvey. No. Jim Turvey now gets it. You had your chance, and it's gone. Jim, you get first bet. What are you taking?
I feel like I should do like a Jaden Ivey prop here or something to really kind of...
Well, that's all the time we have for Buckets. Jesus, I have to start the clock. Go.
Okay, my first pick, I will do. So you mentioned that there's going to be some repeats. I want to start with a fresh one that you teased at one point, and I brought it to the top floor. You know, I had to do that. It was all Murray's fault combo, the parlay, and not only are we going to combine the Pelicans under with the Hawks over, we're going to go to the alts as well. We're going to go Pelicans under 42.5, Hawks over 40.5. That plays plus 954. So we're getting almost a 10-1 on the it was all DeJounte Murray's fault. Now, that's kind of the joking title of this, but these are two teams that I am directionally – I've made both of these bets individually. A little bit of the cap is I do think that Murray at this point in his career is potentially one of those players who just does not contribute to winning as much. However, there are a lot more factors to this. For the Pelicans, I talked about this on our win total draft. I drafted their under, and I talked about liking the possibility of, maybe not the bottom falling out. This still is a very solid team that won almost 50 games in the West last year. But A, the West is better. B, they seem to be scrambling things all over. They are starting the season without a center, which I looked at the start of their schedule. It might actually be kind of intriguing to see how it works. but that means extra minutes for Zion against bigs. I know they say that Herb Jones is going to be playing the center. That's like, that's just not how it's going to work. I'm sorry. That's just not how it's going to play out in reality, which makes me more concerned about Zion, even though he looks like he's in great shape. He historically has not been able to stay healthy. You've got questions about Brandon Ingram, left, right, and center. You lost some of that depth in the trade to get Murray, and the rest of the West is just so much better that some of these teams are simply going to have to slip. This isn't a massive slip to get about a plus 200 number on the Pelicans here. On the flip side, Hawks, I've talked about them on, again, regular season wins draft pod. I was devastated to not have them. We had Fiddle end up with them, but in that same conversation we talked about, I like their ceiling as well. I really love the floor. I really think they're going to clear that 35, 36 and a half floor because there's just no motivation for them to tank this year. But even on top of that, I just think that this Hawks team had basically the season from hell last year and was right around that total. This year, them sneaking over 40. The East is actually better, but there are a lot of really, really bad teams in the East that they're going to be able to scoop up wins against. I think we're going to get more games out of Trey. I think we're going to get more games out of Jalen Johnson, who I think is going to pop this season. Even Risa Shea has looked solid after, kind of quiet start to summer and preseason. He's actually looked really solid recently. I think he's going to fit in pretty smoothly. This Hawks team, Quinn Snyder, I think I was a season early on them last year. I see Matt Riley smiling and believing there's not a season early with the Hawks. These are just the crummy team, but I think that to get the Pelicans under, the Hawks over at those alts, if there is any correlation to the Murray part of it, then that we are, they're definitely not baking in. There'd be no reason to bake in a correlation here. And so they're just giving us at the straight 2 numbers that they pay out. You get a plus 954 on the, it was all Murray's fault parlay.
Yeah, I threw this one when we kind of started talking about it and all the different things. I was like, this really is kind of the core of it. Is you do think that the problem with the Hawks last year was DeJounte Murray. Like that's what was holding them back because like a lot of the metrics indicate that Murray was a problem, and like there's a lot more reasons for that. And Jim laid it out. I get it. Look, I'm not in on like a super Hawks under here. My updated power rating has them at 34.5 wins. Based off of preseason vibes, I'm probably going to bump them to 35 and a half. There is an encouragement and enthusiasm about the new guys, just having new guys. And while I think that Dyson is not quite like the wonderkind that some people have made him out to be, he is like a good defender. And while I think Larry Nance it's really hard to duct tape Larry together at this point, he is very useful. I still worry about, how can I put this? Playing with Trae Young, even though Trae's good, those vibes holding through the winter. But like, they have a lot of guys, so I get it. And the Pelicans, the center thing, I think does stick out. Now, what I do think is interesting is when I was watching the Pels the other night in preseason, and Ingram was out, and it was like the dream. It was like Zion at 0.5. With DeJounte and shooters. And it was like, this is it. And they won't get to that as much because Ingram will wind up playing. So look, I think especially when you get to these kind of numbers, I'm rooting for you, even if I'm not going to bet it. I cannot hate on this because I think the logic is sound, and especially, we jokingly are like, yeah, it was all DeJounte's fault, but also what if if we get to Christmas and it's like, yeah, DeJounte Murray's like, they're better with him off the floor than on, which is likely because they employ Jose Alvarado. But also, if it's like they're negative, then I'm going to be that bet's going to look awesome. I like taking this position. I like going all the way on this position. I think this is good betting. I like this in particular because this is a rare case in which we get player movement resulting in a correlated parlay on alts.
Yeah.
And that is a very smart bet. So that's cheers, Jim. Even though I cannot bet the Hawks, I still cheers you for that bet. Joe Dolera, give me a best bet.
I like Bennedict Mathurin to win Sixth Man of the Year. You can get this as high as 25-1. I would play this down to even like 15-1, honestly. I just think that he is the perfect archetype for this award. He's going to be in his 3rd season. He's coming off of an injury. So, obviously he missed the back half of the year. But I do think that this is going to be a season where, sometimes that really helps, especially some of these young players where they get to watch, so actually sit down, watch some film, see what things work, decide what parts of their game they want to work on. And he's just a microwave scorer. And that's kind of what we've seen this award go to. Outside of really the last 2 seasons have been interesting because last year players got hurt. Naz Reid winds up sneaking in and winning the award. Year prior, Malcolm Brogdon wins the award, but he was somebody where you looked at and you said like, okay, like maybe he's like a really good advanced metric type of guy, but like the numbers weren't super eye popping off the page. Normally we're seeing guys scoring like 16, 17 points a game, and that's right up Mathurin's alley. So on an Indiana Pacers team that does have like a super high octane offense, doesn't have Buddy Hield anymore, I think that this is a good opportunity for him to really be a scorer off the bench. It seems pretty clear that Rick Carlisle does not want him in the starting lineup. He really didn't start many games at all last year. And even post All-Star break, where he was better, he was averaging 17.1 points per game. He started 4 games out of 7 before, like with some of the injuries that he had. And I just think this is a great opportunity on what should be a playoff team in the East, should be a team that's going to rely primarily on their offense. And one of the other things that I noticed from his splits, his home splits, he was averaging 16.5 points per game last year. Road splits were at 12.3. So I do think that that's something with a little bit more time, a little bit more maturation, starts to regulate and even out, besides the fact that he's going to be more comfortable in his game and continue to improve as a player. So I like the ceiling here for Mathurin, and I think it's a good way to back the Pacers' just truly elite offense.
What's the number you've got right now?
You can get it as high as 25-1. I would play it down to 15-1.
Yeah, 25-1. I can't, that's like the target range, I think, for awards, especially this one. I think that's a good number. The comments for Mathurin in preseason have been kind of interesting. There's kind of been an emphasis on, it sounds like the coaches were kind of like, hey, we have Tyrese Halliburton and we got Pascal Siakam and we have Miles Turner.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to be like the face of this franchise unless you like really level up. But more importantly, we need you to do these other things. And so like, that's one of the things that concerns me is, how can I put this? If you do the things that help you win, you very rarely actually win 6th man of the year. Now, I think Naz did that, right?
Yeah.
Which is why I thought he was deserving of winning 6th man of the year. But a lot of the guys, including the guy that would have won had he not gotten hurt, aren't necessarily of that ilk. They're just microwave guys.
Yeah.
And so the question is just like, now Mathurin can be that. And maybe he just like morphs into both, right? Like an impact player who is also microwave. The problem with that is, if he's that good, does he wind up starting? So like, it's a delicate line here, but at 25-1, I'm not going to sit here and
the field for this award. The field for this award is just so like hazy, honestly, because it does seem like they backed him up there, and then like the Wolves have multiple guys. Josh Hart's probably going to start, like, is the way it sounds. So it's really tough to navigate, but at least Mathurin can score.
I'm at the point of just being like, maybe we should just bet Celtics for all the awards. So
I add here. Payton Pritchard is 100-1 to win 6th man of the year. I think it could be worth like a little sprinkle, just a touch, because they were honestly like pretty healthy at the wing position last year, I think. And they did get a lot of good health. They did have a long off season, did have a long summer. Porzingis obviously is going to be injured to start the season. And we've seen Pritchard just absolutely destroy. It's preseason, but he's destroying teams. And then like when he has had an expanded role, he does score, and he's on an elite team. Like we know they're going to win. So is it?
And he's going to have like 100% usage rate against the Pistons, apparently.
Yeah, and he's going to shoot like 75% on heaves because he's the one guy that'll actually shoot them. Like, is it crazy to throw like a couple bucks on Pritchard at 100-1 to win 6th man of the year for a Boston Celtics team that we know is going to be good?
A good formula for this is the Celtics win every game by double digits because they won 42 games last year by double digits. If they were to somehow be better this year, they would be up by so much that Pritchard would play more. And it would be like, look at these numbers for Payton Pritchard, which is like ignoring the fact that most of the time it's, because the Celtics were up by 30. So he played 35 minutes off of the bench. Yeah, you might get. I might have to add a Payton Pritchard position on that one.
At 100 to 1, I was like, I could put a little bit.
Okay, I like that Joe just starts off with a roaring, very just like, what do you want to talk about? Sixth man of the year. Juicy stuff. All right, Jim, back to you. What's your next best bet?
I'll keep it in the awards mode. Here's one that, like, honestly, to me is just kind of a, like, I'm not usually this is a bad number guy. I usually like to have like a little bit more to it, but like this to me is just a really bad number that's sticking around out there. The Defons Wagner most improved player, he's plus 1,500 at some of the sharper bucks. He's plus, you can still find plus 4,500 out there for a guy who I think should be in the very top tier of this. If he just has like positive shooting regression from three to his like career marks, he'll be in the race for this, because that will put him well over 20 points a game, and it'll put him in the All-Star game conversation. I think Orlando, we talk about like how many All-Stars a team gets often can be kind of like a lagging indicator of success. The Magic kind of had their breakout year last year. I wouldn't be surprised to see them get 2 All-Stars this year. That's obviously one of the key factors that Brandon has talked about in this most improved player. You really need to get that to that All-Star level. Now he's got KCP to kind of create space and to kind of bump his assist numbers. There isn't a whole lot to this other than that I think Defons Wagner should be in the top tier of consideration for this award. And at some books, he is not at all being priced like that.
Defons Wagner 0 of 4 from 3 in preseason. So
oh boy,
that's out. That's out. We'll just
Jim,
go ahead
with this award, right? Like, because I have some similar angles in terms of like but for betting like out to just make the All-Star team.
Yeah.
Like, do you think of that as like almost the ladder step, like the lower rung? Because like the criteria that we've kind of been going with has been you have to make the All-Star team. So like, would you bet both?
Yeah. So it's actually interesting you said, because there's another player who is my would be my favorite for this award, but who I prefer him to make the All-Star game at a shorter number, because I think it's condensed for him. Jalen Williams of OKC. You can get him to be an All-Star at plus 500. Then you cut out all the noise of if anyone, pops or 2 or 3 guys make their first All-Star game. Whereas with Wagner, you're not going to get plus 4,500 on him to make the All-Star game. So I'd rather just take this like crazy long number that's out there and, sit out probably the first rung for Wagner for this one.
Yeah.
I wish you could parlay them since it's correlated.
That's
it'd be really great to correlate, to do a parlay of Jalen Williams All-Star, Jalen Williams Most Improved Player.
Like, even if they counted it as somewhat correlated, it almost certainly wouldn't be enough.
I will tell you, if Jalen Williams and Defons Wagner are both All-Stars and their seasons continue at that trajectory, Jalen Williams is winning this award by like a wide margin. For
sure. But he's still in, now he's down to like plus 1,500 because all of us action people posted and talked about it. Yeah. The Franz one has not moved as much, so go grab that one.
Yeah, Jalen Williams, Brandon Anderson's favorite.
I love that one too.
Is one of his 2 best bets for the awards season. Okay, so that's a wrong number in the market. Joe Delera, what do you got for me?
I want to stick on Jalen Williams right now too, because there were some plays that I liked for him, and these were under like one of the player special markets, right? And I have 2. I have Jalen Williams to average 23 plus points per game, and Jalen Williams to average 4 plus assists per game at plus 350. And I also have Jalen Williams to average 20 plus points per game and the Thunder to win the title at 10 to 1. So I think that for him to average 20 plus points a game it's basically a free boost on the Thunder to win the title, because he averaged 19.1 last season. And Jim talked about this on a prior pod, but basically when he played with Giddey per 100 possessions, averaged 25.5 points per game. Without Giddey, 35 points per 100 possessions. It's just a monster jump. So like he only played actual games without him, still averaged 22.5. So to me, this is just like a free booster on the Thunder to win the title at 10 to 1. Because of the way that we're seeing Jalen Williams. Like, we all think there's going to be a huge improvement, and we all think Oklahoma City is going to be good. So, and this isn't really even that far off of what he did last year anyway. So I like that one. And then for the pivot, right, the other one isn't focused on them winning the title, but he averaged 3.5 assists per game last year anyway. And then the points per game, based on what I just mentioned before, I think that this is not a bad number either at plus 350. It's kind of a way to bet on him for like all-star, for an improvement, for most improved, without getting into the voting. And it's really based a little bit more on just raw output.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that if he puts up the numbers, he's going to have the visibility because they're on national TV more and they're expected to be the 1 seed. Like, I keep trying to find any sort of, like, I keep trying to figure out how the Thunder are going to disappoint. Like, that's like where I'm at, is like, okay, the hype is out of control. We all agree they're going to be awesome. What's the catch? And I can't find one.
My concern with the awards is honestly that, like, the conversation that a lot of the conversation we've had is that Shea is the guy to win MVP. So, like, how many awards are you going to give to an Oklahoma City team? Like, that's my concern, honestly. Like, especially with the awards market.
Yeah.
So,
like, Shea can't win MVP and the other guy win most improved. I get that.
So, like, I think that these ones are tied, like, a little bit more to, like, what I think is not only natural growth, but it's, like, within the realm of things based on what we saw with and without Giddey. And then, like, the guys that you added in, like, Hartenstein's, like, a good wheel guy, but he's not going out there scoring 20 points a game. Caruso's not a guy going out there scoring 20 points a game and eating up a ton of usage. So I think that Williams, like, has to get the ball more, and the numbers indicate that he will. So then to get the Thunder boosted basically up to 10-1 for the title on something that I think he's going to do no matter what, score 20 points a game. And, like, honestly, if he doesn't, then that dramatically changes my view of the Oklahoma City Thunder anyway.
So I spoke with someone who knows that team very well. And there is a lot of, I will just say this, you don't have to worry about the emphasis being on him.
Yeah.
Like that's one thing that sometimes can hurt it when it's like everyone's like, he's really good. And the team sometimes is like, yeah, like it happens. Like it just does, where teams are just like, yeah, because the GM's not into him or the coach isn't into him or both of them aren't into him or what. And sometimes it's as simple as like a personality conflict. And sometimes it's, it's nothing but, endemic to either person. It's just like they're just not in the right situation. And sometimes it's because one person's an asshole. Like that happens a lot. And that's not the case in OKC. Joe, I do have to ask you this, and Jim, I need your thoughts on this as well. Okay, how does, outside of injury, like that we bake that in, right? How does this lose? Like how does Jalen Williams fail to get to these thresholds?
I think the failure would be that, he's not, like, he doesn't take a ton of threes. Efficiency drops because there's a little bit more defensive focus on him. And because it's like, honestly, I think those are really the two things. Like, it's just that there's efficiency drop and then there's more attention on him because
the only thing
for the title is just like I don't know. Like maybe they just aren't that good in the playoffs.
No, I
get
number is the title. Yeah. I'm not asking you to justify the title. The title makes sense, like, because you're using this, like you said, as a boost for Thunder to win the title.
Yeah.
But Jim, what were you saying?
I was going to say the only thing that I think, sports psychology wise, he did not have a very good postseason. He doesn't strike me as the type of person who's going to have a poor, postseason and then let that kind of get in their head like a la Ben Simmons. It's a very different situation. But if teams kind of learned how to scheme him, maybe more, it's like there's more of a playbook on him after seeing how he struggled in the postseason. But I think the Thunder team has more weapons, or maybe not weapons in Caruso and Hartenstein, but like Joe said, really good complementary pieces that kind of will augment the high usage guys like Jalen and Shea. And I have a lot of faith in the Thunder organization, especially if you're saying that they are high on him, of coming up with the counter to those counters. So Again, there's always ways that things can go wrong. I think it's really good to, when we're all on someone, like kind of take the opposite and be like, how does this go wrong? And I think there are ways that we laid out a few of them here and there. I just don't think that they're very likely, to be honest.
Okay. Jim, back to you. Next
I'm gonna sneak a couple in here because I want to give out a lot of bets. So there's a tier of teams that's kind of like, they're all around 26.5 wins. It's the Utah Jazz, the Toronto Raptors, Chicago Bulls, and I'm going to throw the Charlotte Hornets in here as well. what I've liked to do, I've taken all 4 of these teams and I bet their alt unders at about plus 200, because this is the tier of teams that are going to be trying to get down to that 4th worst record. There's 3 really, really bad teams. One of them may even, win a few more than we expected. I think the race for that bottom, the real bottom tier, is going to be really strong this season. We've seen what this draft class is last. People are saying that tanking is going to be back. I think that the bottom is going to fall out. Even in a regular season, betting these alt unders, a few of these teams in this region to kind of plummet isn't a terrible bet. But I think this year it's really, really strong. And what I'll say is this, I like this bet in general. What I would really, really love is if you could go like 10 wins down on all of these teams at plus 400 and bet all 4 of them. I think you would probably hit 2 of them and maybe even hit, definitely hit 1 to cover yourself and maybe even hit 2 that just the bottom falls out. We see it every year where teams who are in this kind of range, the bottom falls out. So the 4 that I like the most, we're on Pistons Island. I'm not going to pick them, but, I can't complain if you do. The Utah Jazz, Toronto Raptors, Chicago Bulls, and Charlotte Hornets are kind of those teams that I think if things go wrong at any point, they're going to use any excuse to kind of take that exit off and go to capture the flag and get down in the really low part of the standings this year.
Yeah. By the way, on the Pistons standpoint, I did talk to 2 people this week that were like, yeah, it doesn't sound like Detroit's like super in on winning. They just want to lay the foundation. Like they get it. And they're just like trying to, they want to play better. And I'm like, but you could also win. That's it. Do that too. The other problem is, like I'm not going to overreact to a preseason game. They got stomped by 2 different good teams this week. And that may be like one of the essential problems is it may come down to schedule and like, do they have enough teams that are in their tier that they face? Right. Because like, the division isn't super tough, but you do have Pacers, Bucks, and Cavs at the top. Like, that's a lot of games versus teams that are definitively better than Detroit. And then the thing is, like, no, Detroit's not that bad. Like, they are definitively better than the bottom rung. But also, Detroit can't beat anybody better than them or ever. That's going to drop the win. Because, like, that's one of the things is there are bad teams that their entire problem is they're inconsistent. But any, like, night to night, they'll knock off whoever.
And the Asar stuff is a little bit scary. I kind of feel like that's going to be one where he might just not play it. Like that's one where it very easily could be the first domino that is like, okay, let's do one more year. I will say shout out to Andrew O'Connor Watts. He was looking the Raptors schedule, like you said, like sometimes these bad teams, if they get off to a decent start, then they'll like chase it for a bit. Or if they're like 0-10, they're like, all right, let's just wrap this up now. The Raptors have a really tough start to the season. So that makes that which is probably the best roster of that whole tier, a little bit more intriguing on the pulling the plug all under there.
Yeah. So I don't mind this play. I do wish we had more markets like this where it was. I wish you could play. The one I really wish the DraftKings would give us is alt seedings. That's the one that I would really like because you're going to get a juicier number on it because you're having like it's you saying, "Whoa, no, I'm not just parlaying like where this team's going to finish. I'm inherently also parlaying that these other teams are going to be better than them." Right? Yeah. And so being able to take the alt number on those seedings I think would be really good. To be able to get that in there, but unfortunately, DraftKings hasn't gotten there yet. But much like plus minus and several things, the future I will eventually get all the bets that I want. I like this. I think it's smart. I like taking those teams in particular. I do think the closer that we're getting to the season, there's as usual, you go through the off season and you're like, yeah, like this team's like they could be. Everyone's always got like they could be good.
Yeah.
Right. Raptors is a really funny one because like Brandon was very in, and now like it's gotten to like late preseason, and everybody else is like, oh man, the Raptors are going to be bad.
Spoiler for Friday, he is still in, and I am very surprised.
Why?
Yeah, actually, those are two separate things. I'm not surprised that he has not changed his mind. I'm very surprised by the prior, though.
Yeah. Getting that man off of his prior takes a crowbar.
Different story.
All right, Joe, hit me with another bet.
So this is a little homer, but I like Karl Anthony Towns to be an all-star at plus 240. This was plus 300 a couple days ago, but it's kind of gotten – I think it's gotten a little bit of action. Look, he's a center now, And I think that that's critically important, especially for the Eastern Conference too, because he switched conferences. And when you look at who the centers are in the Eastern Conference, he's immediately kind of thrust up towards the top, especially when you hear some of these comments from Joel Embiid saying like, hey, I don't think I'm going to play in back-to-backs. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I only care about winning. We'll see if that like actually is true or not. But if he's a guy that is like a shoe-in, he's like the highest favorite, the biggest favorite to make the All-Star team right now, tied with Tatum, Brunson, and Giannis, right, for the Eastern Conference. If you take him out, they're probably going to try to replace him with a center. And Karl-Anthony Towns, I think this offense is going to be humming for the New York Knicks. And a lot of times when you're going to get the New York bump in terms of the voting, you're going to get a little bit more of an opportunity here. You're going to get a little bit more eyeballs. Obviously, there were some carryover eyeballing from Minnesota being so good last year. But going to New York, being put in a different position offensively, I think the numbers could really be significant here for Karl-Anthony Towns. So at plus 240, I think that it's a reasonable play for a guy that's obviously been an all-star, been an all-NBA caliber player, and is going to be surrounded by a team that could be, a top, say 4 seed in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I mean, if Julius Randle can be an all-NBA selection because he plays in New York twice, then that can make an all-star team for sure. Yeah, I don't mind it. I don't mind this. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a way. The only way this doesn't hit is if the Knicks have disappointed, and then you're just sad anyway.
And my thing is, at least at the beginning of the season, they're healthy. Like the injury issues, I'm usually worried about later. So it's like for this, it's like I think they could be okay. Like I think this could work out well for them. And I'm not trying to mortgage all of my happiness on Karl-Anthony Towns, but here we are.
His minutes should get a bump under Tibbs too, right? I was actually meaning to look this up the other day. If his minutes when Tibbs was coaching him in Minnesota were notably higher than after Tibbs left. But that was something I was thinking in terms of approaching Cat props from a day-to-day basis.
He just played like 30 minutes in the preseason game. So
yeah, I figured.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the entire Eastern Conference to see like who would sneak in. I do think there's gonna be a lot of spots available. Like I don't know that like. I don't know. Like I guess here's a good question. It's stuff like, is Bam an automatic? Like if the Heat are 500?
I don't think so. There's a couple guys that I had that thought with, especially. But my thing is too, like these guys in the Eastern Conference, some of them are like often injured. Like Embiid is injured all the time. Giannis has missed a couple of these now. Like Paul George, obviously, you always are dealing with injury things. Like Jimmy Butler, same thing. LaMelo Ball. I think Scotty Barnes and LaMelo Ball and Pascal Siakam have shorter odds than Karl-Anthony Towns to make the All-Star team, and I cannot get there. I can't get there.
I'm not giving out bets on this pod, and you're going to hear fewer best bets for me because I want to get more analysis from our great panelists on buckets this season. However, the all-star thing got me looking at the markets, which got me on all NBA. Yeah, I'm going to bet Jaylen Brown at plus 2,500 just to piss Brandon off for all NBA. Yeah, I'm going to do that.
The old petty bet.
The petty bet. All right. Joe's on Cat for All-Star at plus 250. And like, I want to like hit this. I want to be able to like tear this down, but the logic is really sound here. There's like a million ways that he gets into this game.
Yeah, like he could just be awesome and get in, but then also guys could just not play and he get in because it's just like, how far down are you going to go?
Yeah, I agree. All right, Jim, back to you.
Lots of big numbers here. I'm going to sneak in 2 minus numbers here, and they're 2 division winners. They're the 2 best teams in basketball, which is a little bit sketchy, but to get the Thunder at minus 120 to win the division and the Celtics at minus 140, I am all over both them. And it's, again, as you said with the seeding thing, it's not just a matter of liking these teams. I do think that these are absurdly good basketball teams that have incredible depth and are going to be 2 of the best regular season teams we've seen in a while. It's also that the 2 teams right behind them in the standings, I'm kind of in the more fade mode, especially in the West. Denver and Minnesota, 2 of my favorite unders. In the East, the Knicks are one of my favorite unders, maybe my actual favorite under in the whole league. The Sixers are the one team that scare me a little bit, but now we see Embiid not playing back-to-back. So I think that these two teams are being priced as hefty favorites. You see crazy win totals, but the division odds to me have not caught up with that. And to get a -120 and -140, I think it's probably just a lot of people don't like laying a minus number for 6 months of basketball, and that's totally fair. But I'm going to put some of my money towards it and see it as, it pays out the same, and you get some safer bets to mix into a portfolio in which I always have my, 50 plus, my 50 to ones. I need to have a few little bit safer bets, ride out that variance a little bit more. And these are two of my favorite minus number bets for the season.
So I love doing parlays on divisions. It's my sickness. I'm addicted on that. And it's actually works out because I round robin them and I usually do pretty well on them. If you do division winner Celtics Thunder, it's plus 204 at DraftKings. If you do the seeding, it's Celtics under 1.5, so 1 seed.
Yeah.
And Thunder actually 2.5. That only gets you to 213. So you're better off taking the division because you're only getting 9 cents on the extra here. And 9 cents is 9 cents. But the difference here is that means that the Mavericks win 64 games.
The Mavs are the exact team that terrify me off of the 1 seed for the Thunder in the West. There's the more I think about them and watch them, I'm like, man, this team might just have arrived a little bit last year and now are even better.
Now, if you do Celtics 1 seed, Thunder 1 seed, that's plus 360.
Ooh, okay. I want the divisions. I want the 2 divisions at the plus.
Don't even parlay. Just take the sorry to cut you off. Just Jim's 100% on this. The Knicks are adorable. They're adorable. The Sixers, I think, are good about they're being honest. I think the Sixers actually approach the season is really good.
Yeah, same.
And the Sixers are being honest about, hey, Joel's not going to he's not going to play back to backs. Don't expect that to happen. It's never going to happen. He's not going to play that many games this year. It's not going to happen. We have to get him healthy for the playoffs. We can't risk it anymore. And I think Joel's gotten that too. I genuinely think that Joel last year, I'm hard on him, and I could admit that sometimes I was too hard on him. And I will also say that he pushed because it was he wanted to compete and he wanted to show how great he is. But it was stuff like going for 70 versus the Wizards. He needed to just take that game off.
Yeah.
And I think they'll do better about managing that this season. But that also means that's it. Celtics are winning the division. We talked about this. Their floor is 55.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's disaster.
Ridiculous.
Everyone has slept with everyone's significant other if they do not win 55 games.
Yeah, and Payton Pritchard wins most 6 games.
Right. Yeah. And on the Thunder side, I just the Wolves honestly are the one that I'm just kind of I am a little bit uh-oh, because this Dante DiVincenzo thing, I'm oh no, this might change. Oh no. But I'm so out on Denver as the division winner. I have to be in on OKC.
Yeah.
I got them. I hammered them during the first night of free agency. I'm not trying to tout a dead number here. I'm just saying that to me, the entire way that this market was viewed was it took the books legitimately a month to be Denver's not as good as they were. And now that's very apparent, but it still hasn't corrected enough. This number should be shorter. This is a great number on the Thunder. I love these bets from Jim. They're very reasonable, sound bets.
Wait, Matt, can I get a promise from you? This is related to the Philadelphia side of this. Can you listen to the podcast on Friday and can you record yourself as you listen to my bet for the Philadelphia 76ers? Because I dreamed it up thinking of your face reacting to it, and I'm going to need video and audio response to this 76ers best bet for Friday.
Okay.
Perfect.
Sounds good. I'll make sure to make that happen. All right, Joe Delara, back to you. We are under 5 minutes.
I have all right. So I have a litany of Victor Wembanyama props. So we are gonna compile them all right here. Wemby 5+ blocks per game is plus 370 on DraftKings. I think the number is a little too short. The number sounds outrageous, but he averaged 4.45 after the All-Star break. I don't think that this is crazy. I just don't think it's crazy for him to block 5 shots a game. Then there's a couple other ones that I like. Victor to average 25 plus points per game and to average 12 rebounds per game, plus 265. He averaged 23.5 points, 12 rebounds per game after the All-Star break. Jim talked about Victor, what was it, 11 plus or 12 plus rebounds a game? Yep. I love that too, if you want that as like the base. But I just think that the progression in terms of the scoring can be there, especially when you couple in Chris Paul. Well, you can also do Victor Wembanyama to average 25 plus points per game, Chris Paul to average 8 plus assists per game, and the Spurs to win 40 games at 8-1. I think those are highly correlated outcomes where Chris Paul has to play enough games, because that's part of what this is. He's got to play 41 games for this bet to hit. But I think that having him is going to raise Victor's ceiling offensively. And if Chris Paul plays 40 games, I like the opportunity for the Spurs to also win 40 games. And then finally, if you're really looking for a long shot on Victor to lead the league in rebounds per game and the Spurs to win 35 games is 15-1. So I think that these are all kind of like natural buildups on each other. And I just think that there's some good opportunity here if you want to bet on Wemby to have like a monster breakout year, as opposed to betting on him for most improved player, defensive player of the year. I think that these are much better opportunities than betting on a couple of those awards.
5 blocks is insane.
It's a monster. It's insane. But he averaged 4.5.
I don't know what to do. This is another one where I'm accused often of being a contrarian. And there is a part of me that is always like, if everyone agrees that something will happen in sports, there is a very high probability that it will in fact not happen.
Yeah.
And the amount of bad juju that you and Brandon Anderson have put on Victor Wembanyama is terrifying.
Like, I do think that there are some, like, he has some issues that he has to work out. Sure. Blocking shots is not one of them.
Not one of them. That is does it. You're right.
Not one of them. I think the only fear is that like people just like, I feel like shot blocking is like almost like you peak and then come down because people just get so scared. But 4.5 is insane. Like that's such a high line. In like, such, not a full minute load either. So
yeah, like I just think the numbers
block
right.
Like he's gonna block the Sombor shuffle this year from Jokic, and I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose my mind. Jim, you have one Wemby prop, yes?
Mine is very correlated with what Joe said. I think the rebounds in particular, when you think about the fact that he averaged 12 after the All-Star break when his minutes bumped and then put on all the muscle that we've seen in these photos, they've hung his line at 11.5 and it hasn't moved. I gave that out on our player prop pod. Yeah. I absolutely love the over 11.5. I love getting 12 plus at a plus number as well. Any Wemby rebound prop, I'm going to be all over.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, it's really funny because like I don't love his technique. Like I think his box outs are bad. He doesn't have any ass in order to be able to establish position. But it doesn't matter because he just reaches up and then the ball is in his hand.
He's got Inspector Gadget arms.
And then like the other 7-footers are like the little guys trying to jump up and
he's literally gonna get rebounds from blocks. Like he's gonna catch the ball out of the air. Like it just happens.
Okay. Jim, your last best bet.
I'm just going to reiterate what I think you and Brandon said. I think this was your favorite and Brandon's favorite for Coach of the Year. And I really love just betting these two guys because they actually profile very similar to me. Is they're being priced as kind of the middle tier of their conference. But I actually think that they will end up in the very top tier of their conference with mid-50s wins. Kenny Atkinson and Coach Bud, Mike Budenholzer, they're both in their first year. They're both going to bring up pace and threes a lot. Kenny Atkinson in particular, I'm going to be watching those Cavs teams. I think the pace and threes are going to be absolutely flying for them. I'm going to be looking at overs for a team that historically has been an under team. And then Coach Bud all over the Suns this year. There's a bunch of really fun ways to play them. I think Bradley Beal might be having in line for a really nice bounce back year. He's running with the bench unit a lot. I think he's going to he's of all the guys who, you talk about trying to convince guys to take threes. It's not going to take a lot to convince Beal. It might take a lot more to convince Booker and KD. But I think these two coaches, if you play the two of them both at 20-1, you have yourself a really, really nice Coach of the Year portfolio for the season.
I'm not going to disagree with that because I literally have given that, I think, twice. So, good stuff. Joe has a lot more. that we could have gotten to. But I appreciate you guys doing this. We can't get all of them. You can track all of Joe's plays in the Action Network app. You can track all of Jim's plays in the Action Network app. My thanks to David Payne, our producer, as well as Tito Bonach, getting this up on youtube.com/The Action Network. Appreciate you guys being with us. We'll see you guys tomorrow for Cash Only with Sean Little and Jay Money talking about their best bets for the 2024-25 NBA season. Make sure to check out all the great stuff in the Action Network app, all of our articles. I have win total and division analysis on every single team coming out. Like, I've written ones on every single team. Those are coming out this week. My poor editor is making her hands bleed trying to get those out. So make sure to go read those. Appreciate you guys joining us. We'll see you guys again next time. Till then, let's get buckets.